The law offices of Ron Scholes presents Miller on Sports, the only sports show that keeps you glued to your seat. Everything else is just talk. Now, here's your host, Richard Miller.
Oh, it's another beautiful, wonderful day to be alive in the city of Jacksonville, Florida. Welcome on in. This is Miller on Sports right here on Talk Radio 600 WBOB. Always brought to you by the law offices of Ron Scholes, a law firm of military veterans fighting for you. Check them out at youhurtwefight.com. All right. Now, every Thursday at 1:20, that was a bad joke. I'll just move on as quickly as possible. But every Thursday at 1:20, we bring you the NASCAR Report with Nascar Andy right here on Talk Radio 600 WBOB, your official home for NASCAR. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing fine. A good sign will be the day they walk out there for the first day of practice. That'll be a good sign.
Oh, yeah. Training camp, that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I hope it all happens. Follow Andy at NASCAR Andy on Twitter. Hey, Andy, how was your 4th of July?
It was very quiet, very quiet. Yeah, watched a couple races, the Friday night and the Saturday night races. Just took it easy, relaxed a lot.
Oh, that's sometimes what you need. I'm all about having fun and getting together at certain holidays, but there's some times where you just want to get in the lazy boy, kick back, and watch some TV.
That's right.
How do you like the race Saturday at Coke 0400?
I like the Coke 0400. Dale Jr. didn't like it, but I liked it. David Reagan redeemed himself for his mistake in the 500, and he had a strong car. Somebody asked me, "Is that a fluke win?" I said, "Not at all. I mean, he should have won the 500.
He should have."
And he just came back and redeemed himself completely with that win.
And Andy, I had a question for you because looking back at the Daytona 500, Trevor Bayne won that over David Reagan. Reagan was black flag. Can you really explain the black flag? Because I don't get that.
Black flag is when you do something wrong and you have to pull off the track and drive through penalty or a stop and go penalty. What he did is you cannot change lanes even if you're the leader prior to the start-finish line.
Okay.
He was he dove into the other lane before they got to the start-finish line, and that was an automatic black flag. That means you've done something wrong and you've got to pull off the track.
Okay. And Andy, thanks for that explanation. But with Reagan, he's 25 years old. But the thing I look at too is UPS. His primary sponsor has not been in victory lane since 2005, and they were very much on the fence about whether or not to come back. With this victory, do you think they come back with David Reagan?
Yeah, and he's been strong the last few weeks. He's just like Dale Jr., who we're going to talk about probably in a minute. But he's been strong. I mean, like I said, the 500 he should have won, just a rookie mistake. Or he's not a rookie, but just a rookie mistake anyhow. But, yeah, I think UPS will end up re-signing with Roush's strong organization, and I think they'll stay there.
Very interesting. And his first victory, we might add, in the Sprint Cup circuit in 163 races.
Yes.
163.
Go ahead, Let me interject
Andy.
real quick about the nationwide race. I was very impressed with Danica. She led that race and was leading towards the end there and got past but had a chance to win it. I mean, she had people like Tony Stewart pushing her, which means she's driving well if he hooked up with her. So that was another fun race to watch from the Daytona weekend.
Oh, I love the nationwide down at Daytona. It's so much fun. I think it's a great atmosphere. Not nearly as much as a Coke 0400, but it's still a very, very good atmosphere.
Yes, it is.
And Andy, we have to touch on Junior. It seems like every week we're talking about him, whether he's rising or falling. And after this week, I can understand why he's upset with Jimmy Johnson and Hendrick Motorsports and pretty much saying, hey, reporters, write what you want because I'll pretty much agree with you.
Yeah, well, when I was watching that race and they said they were going to hang around the back and then make their move, I said, wrong mistake. Back in the old days when it was a freight train of drafting, that it worked sometimes, but it didn't work most of the time. Something was always going to happen, and you can't get back to the front. Mm-hmm. And then Jimmy Johnson pulled off on a pit stop and left Junior hanging. I mean, if you got a car good enough to run up front, run up front. You notice all the wrecks were in the middle of the pack, and I mean, isn't it how funny thing they all came the last few laps? The big one did happen in the middle of the race. But I agree with Junior, especially with his tandem racing. If you got two cars that are going to hang up front, just stay up there. That way, hey, maybe so you can get caught up in the wreck in the back of the pack just like the front. And something's going to always happen where you can't get back to the front,
And Andy, we've seen over the last couple weeks now a Junior 41st with the leak in his car, and he had to pull off the track. And then this week, it was 19th. He got a little bump and spun out by Jamie McMurray. But I brought up on Tuesday afternoon the fact that here he is with Hendrick Motorsports. You have Mark Martin, Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, and Junior. Do you feel it's more of a case of now Junior is being not second fiddle, but he's third fiddle behind Gordon and Johnson?
Yeah, I think he is third fiddle, right? He always is going to be third fiddle. They're the two premier racers. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, the Hendricks Motorsport philosophy for the weekend was push Mark Martin to the win. But it didn't happen, but that was their philosophy. They had talked about that at the beginning of the race. The announcers had said that the philosophy was get Mark Martin to win. And that didn't work either. I mean, he got caught up in a wreck, if I remember correctly. And that hanging around in the back, I just don't like. If you've got a car, can be up front, stay up front.
We're talking with NASCAR Andy, the NASCAR Report, every Thursday at 1:20. You can find him on Twitter at NASCAR Andy. And Andy, this is something I've brought up numerous times, and I've thought about it maybe thousands of times, is the fact that maybe Dale Earnhardt Jr. just isn't a good driver. Because here he is, he's got the namesake of Earnhardt. We expect greatness. He's not his father.
Well, he's not his father, but he's a very good driver. He's just getting caught up. I mean, he's been doing well, stayed up in the points. He's been circumstanced a lot of things out of his hands, no matter how good of a driver he is, like running out of gas because they got off sequence in pitting or whatever happened, and this left out the drive by Jimmy Johnson. And nobody to team up with to make the run back up to the front. And so no, I'm not going to say Junior's not a good driver. He's not as good as his father, but he's a decent driver.
Okay, and this weekend, Andy, we've got a new track, and not necessarily new in general, but new for the Sprint Cup circuit at Kentucky, the Quaker State 400. What can we expect from this?
Well, they got an extra day of practice today because of it. It's a lot of unknowns. I mean, the extra day of practice, they don't know how to set the cars up. You can't really go off the nationwide cars because they're a different beast. But so it's going to be, they're going to have to just go out there with probably, neutral setups and then see, hey, how do the cars perform with the tire? I mean, they've never been to this track before. Today's practices also include the teams being allowed to try out fuel injection, which they start using in February at Daytona, so they get the extra day, not only to get used to the track, but test out fuel injection with their engines also.
I did not know that. Do you think there's a favorite this week at Kentucky? Because it's a great track, and we've seen trucking nationwide, and I know Carl Edwards is one of both, but is there a favorite, or is it just kind of a toss-up?
No, it's kind of a toss-up. The only thing I can say is the guy who'll get the most experience is Kyle Busch. He's running all three races and trying to go for a trifecta to win again, so I don't want Kyle Busch's favorite, but I can't pick a favorite this week. It's a crapshoot. I'll tell you. I'll tell you something after I look at the qualifying and the practice speeds. We'll remind everybody the race is on TNT on Saturday night.
And we will have the race for you right here on Talk Radio 600 WBOB as well. And Andy, I look at Carl Edwards and Kevin Harvick flipping spots in the point standings. Should we look into that more, or is that not really worth it?
That's not really worth it right at the moment. I mean, Carl had a bad day at Daytona, and he just, it's going to go back and forth. But let's see where everybody's sitting at the beginning of their chase.
And Andy, we're 17 races into the 36-race schedule. What's the biggest surprise so far this year for you?
The number of different winners.
Yeah, great point.
Nobody's dominating other than Kevin Harvick. I mean, the number of different winners. Look how many different winners we've had.
Yeah, it seems like every single week there is a different winner.
Right.
The parity right now in NASCAR is quite good. NASCAR Andy with the NASCAR Report every Thursday at 1:20. Andy, enjoy the weekend, enjoy Kentucky, and we'll talk next week.
You take care, Richard.
All right. NASCAR Andy right here on Miller on Sports each and every Thursday on Talk Radio 600 WBOB. Enjoyed the races this weekend. A little disappointed I couldn't go down there, but there's always next year. Isn't that what the Brooklyn Dodgers said for something like 6 or 7 years, maybe even longer? Wait till next year, which, by the way, is a very good book. Tracy.com coming up next from Action News. Find her on Fox 30, Friday mornings at 7:45 a.m. She's also the weekend anchor. She does it all. It's mind-boggling. Tracy.com is everywhere. She joins us Thursdays at 1:35. Are you ready for the weekend? And find her on Facebook, too, because, what is it? I think 80% of people are on Facebook. I think I just made that stat up. But go to Facebook, find her, jaxtracy.com, and she's on Twitter at Tracy_.com. We'll get you ready for the weekend because there's so much going on. I know it's 4th of July, so maybe you want to rest a little bit, but there are things to do along the First Coast, and we will keep you informed. Tracy will bring that to you coming up in just a couple minutes right here on Miller on Sports, always brought to you by the law offices of Ron Scholes, a law firm of military veterans fighting for you. Coming up, it's the Florida News Network. We take a little break, come back with Tracy.com from Action News. You're listening to Miller on Sports.
Your new home for the best conservative talk radio in Jacksonville. Talk Radio 600. WBOB. Online 600WBOB.com.